Spacemen, V formation, today on the Man Space. Welcome to the Man Space Podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Space.
Rutgers?
Space. Welcome, space. Hold on. I said last time I'm going to come up with a new nickname. Not Space
Long
Beans.
spaces.
We've already done that. Welcome, space. No, I got nothing. Space birds. There, for flying V's.
Flying V.
What if I did the whole episode like this? Gosh,
That'd
you
be
really
rad.
see every... Like, look how old I look. Also,
You realize you are old. Oh, that's
it's
even
backwards.
There
better.
you go.
the other day my...
It's not backwards.
It's not. It looks backwards to me.
Well, it looks
Well,
backwards
you've
too
got the,
because
you've
you're
got the
screen
mirror view
mirroring.
on your. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys can read the Man Space?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like I assume you guys can
just
read
for you.
Jeter.
And I'm
Right.
assuming you can
Oh, yeah.
read my dartboard.
I mean... As a side note, my son was
That's the
wearing,
driver's eye test.
He was wearing a Man Space hat the other day.
Who?
And one of my son,
Oh.
and one of my I can't get enough of this angle. My son, so one of my friends was like, "What's that? You guys got merch?" I was like, "Yeah, we only made 6 hats."
I thought you made 12.
I think you made more than
Yeah.
that because I ended up with like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think you made a dozen.
It's whatever the minimum order was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I keep thinking, I got to start making sweatshirts. I got to start taking pre-orders so I can go make sweatshirts just so I can have one.
Dude, there's a have I not told you guys about this?
No.
There's a
think
website
so.
that will print the sweatshirts on demand.
Yeah,
So
but what does
you
that
don't have
cost?
to not that much more than we would have to sell them for anyway.
Really?
Yeah. Like I'll
How
ask
am I going
Jenner
to maximize
again.
my profits? I'm into recruiting spacemen, essentially what I call a downline. And the more spacemen I get under me, then they
But
can
it's
get
not an
space
MM
cadets
what is it?
under them. An
It's
MMA.
not a
There's
is that what
multi-level
they're-
marketing.
No. Multi-level MML. No.
MLM.
MLM.
The thing that's basically the MLM that basically runs the Utah economy. All the stuff there, it's like today's Real Salt Lake is brought to you by Life Vantage, an MLM. I'm like, really, guys? Come
between
on.
the MLMs and apparently the plastic surgery.
I feel like go talk to like Adobe. They have a pretty big space there in Lehigh. Go talk to them. Stop putting Life Vantage on your thing. It's really upsetting.
Dude, they don't care. It's just money to them.
It should matter. Do we have no scruples as humans anymore?
Some of us do.
It's all about the bottom line.
This is like when I was asked to write in a couple of magazines a couple times in my career. And I'd look at the magazine and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I won't sully my good name. Turns out I probably should have sullied it.
I
should have
wrote
sold out.
several articles for this like free. It was Bay Area Wellness or Bay Area. I don't remember.
Yeah, like an ad generating magazine type
Yeah.
thing.
And then I was dropping my girls off at school, and back then, like, I'm trying to remember, it was elementary school, so I'd like get Nicole in her chair and send her on her way. This lady was just like staring at me from a distance, and I'm like, okay. And she's like, "You're Dr. Matt Brown." That was so tender. She had read the article, so
Wow. Touching lives. So, V formation. Dude, I just learned something
Mike's,
about
Mike's
birds.
looking at his Punta Cana bill.
I'm
was a
sure,
big
Mike,
one.
we can see you holding your phone up, man.
I was taking my be real.
You didn't even get us in the picture, dude.
I
By
did.
the way, okay, the last episode was about taking vacations with
Oh,
your
yeah.
spouse or partner.
Yep.
So
Dude, it was freaking the best.
give us the Punta Cana download.
Matt, stop being dirty.
There's no video
sounds
footage,
dirty to me.
Matt.
Punta Cana sounds like, whoa, that's a dirty word.
Well, if you take the N out of the first word, it'd be real dirty. But yeah,
That'd be really dirty.
Focus, boys. Not all of us speak Spanish.
As it stands, it's just Cane Point. That's all it
can still make
translates
that dirty.
to. Well, I'm sure you can.
Keep going. Tell us your story. We talked, Mike.
so-
Last time we talked about the taking the 1-1-1 rule or the 7-7-7 rule, which is
I don't
like
know what either of those are.
once a week you go on a date, once a month you go on a mini vacation or an
Or like a
overnight
day
or
together,
an
right?
all day, yeah.
yeah.
And then once a month you go on a, or was once a year,
Once a
you
year.
go on a big vacation,
A vacation
or
of some
7-7-7, which is every 7 days, 7 weeks,
7 weeks and
months.
7 months.
Yeah. Anyway, and we said you were our inspiration because you ditched out on the spacemen to go and
I did.
could floodle with a female.
That you sandwiched between you and a motorcycle rider.
It's true. At one point,
Gallivanting around.
he's like, get closer. And Jenner thought he was talking to me. And so I shifted. He goes, no, not you, her.
Oh,
Mark's like, well, okay, but I don't think
I
Jenner's
was
gonna like
curious
this.
with your position on the back of that motorcycle. Were you getting any tire fire in the butt crack, or were you?
I wasn't actually like I was far enough on. It was okay, but yeah,
But did
it
you
was
feel like
It's a sketchy spot to be.
When you're
It
riding
was
on
like
the backs
a-
of those things, it feels like the back is always like getting shorter. It's like I'm gonna fall off the back.
Yeah. Well, it was like and Matt, I think you know motorcycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I say a 125,
Yeah,
that means something.
that's pretty
that's like
small.
yeah. I feel like that's what it said on it. Like I thought this is like the smallest version of a bike this dude could get and still have it be called an adult motorcycle.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Um,
I think that's the first dirt bike I learned on.
Yeah. So he put 3 of us on there, which I mean, admittedly, this guy probably weighs at most like 100 pounds. But I sure weigh more than 100 pounds.
And he's basically just sitting on the gas tank then.
Yeah, pretty much, probably.
Filipinos used to do that all
Man.
the time. They'd squish as many people as they could, and they just
Yeah.
ride up on the gas tank.
No, it was delightful. We basically spent days just hanging out at either the pool or the beach, so weird thing, you guys have been to, well, I don't know if you have, Matt. You've been to Galveston. I assume it's
Yeah,
the same there.
Punta
like-
Cana is like on the south side, right?
It's on the
think it's
south.
North.
No, Haiti's north.
No, Haiti's.
So
Haiti's,
the DR shares
Haiti's west.
and Is it
Dominican
that way?
Republic's east.
East. Haiti's east, right? Or is Haiti on the
I thought Haiti.
on the
I'm
west
looking
side of
this
the
up.
island? No, you're right. I think
Haiti's
it's Haiti and the
embarrassing.
DR.
Haiti's closer to the states than the DR.
But like, were you on the side of the island facing Florida or facing the Yucatan
no,
Peninsula?
we were on the side. We were facing east
Okay, so yeah.
because we got sunrises but not sunsets. And Jenner decided she wanted to wake up and go
Mike,
take
you were on
pictures for
Dominican Republic is on the east side of the island.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Punta Cana is the almost easternmost point, but it's
Yeah,
on the
which
like the ocean would be north of you.
well, so that's just it. Technically, we were in Bavaro,
Okay,
which is up the coast towards Haiti.
so up more towards. Okay,
Yeah, originally we were going to stay at what's called, I think, Cap Cana,
I mean
which is
When
like the very easternmost tip.
when I stalked you on Find My, you were it showed me right there on the beach in Punta Cana.
Well, so that's just it. Like, The
But I'm sure that's
AccuWeather
just I'm
would
sure
say
that's
we
just
were in Bavaro,
Yeah.
but Apple's weather app would say we were in Punta Cana.
Okay.
And when we
Anyway,
were going back to
continue.
the airport, we kept seeing signs saying Punta Cana's 13 kilometers this way. And I was like,
I feel
so
like
I
a real
wasn't in
moron now that
Punta
I'm looking
Cana?
at a map.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all like east of Cuba. So
Yeah.
basically, you were kind of facing Puerto Rico.
No, yeah.
Yeah, almost.
Which
depending
I
on
didn't realize.
island
I thought
or
Puerto
where he
Rico
was.
was closer to the States than the
Mhm.
DR. I didn't
Shows
realize
what
it
you
was
know.
that far out. It does show what I know.
Tell me what you know about Granada.
But you
Not
got
a thing.
you got sunrises, no
Yeah.
sunsets.
So that's the funny thing. We went to go take pictures, and Jenner's like, "Well, what time does the sun come up?" And I said, 5:59.
Yeah.
And she was
nice
like,
and early.
"Oh." And she's like, "Okay, cool." She's like, and I said, "So when do you want to get up to go do this?" And she goes,
I don't.
"We'll get up so that we're there by like 5:59." And I'm like, "Okay." Forgetting that by the time we get there, it's a little after 5:59, and 5:59 is when the sun is up. It's not
Oh.
when the sun is rising. It's when the sun
Rising.
is up.
Yeah.
So you missed it.
So we missed it, but she went to go take pictures, and the pictures, like on her camera, she didn't adjust anything. Like she just took the picture, but it has all of the sunrise light and colors that she was hoping for. So
No, sweet.
they all worked out. The beaches there are super weird. Nobody like sets up towels and tents or crap like that on the beach. Like
Huh.
What do they do?
all of the different resorts and condominiums have their little section, and they have chairs. And so if you don't belong to one of them, you can't sit in them.
Mhm.
And then there will be a couple, like there was one restaurant that as long as you bought food from them, you could hang out in the chairs. And so that's what we ended up doing, because the condo we stayed at didn't have any chairs anywhere, which I thought you guys need to fix that, because you give us a private entrance, but then where am I supposed to go?
Yeah.
Like, I got a private entrance to the beach. That's cool, but I got nowhere to go once I'm here. There's so much, and I don't know if seaweed is a seasonal thing, but there was so much seaweed, it was ridiculous.
Was it the sargassum stuff?
I don't even
Whoa,
know what that
buddy.
is.
Okay, so there's a sea of sargasso, I think. And like we got it here in Galveston several years ago. Is it like the brown
Yes,
kind of like, oh dude, that stuff is
stick
like yeah, and
Yeah.
we got hordes of it, and there were
Yeah.
like signs everywhere on the beach saying Mother Nature's rebuilding the beach, be patient, but it like reeks. Like it starts to rot, and
I
like
was
they
gonna
had
say,
to like bury
oh,
it
that's-
and push it
that's-
back, and
probably what they did. So every
Yeah.
morning we would we went out one night and we saw a huge pile of seaweed, right? Because the guys in the morning will go down to the beach and scoop up a whole bunch of it. So
Yeah.
and it's like, the guy at the restaurant we would eat at, just so we could eat on the beach, he would like clean his little section of beach. And so there's like 4 or 5 guys each cleaning their own little section of beach, just shoveling seaweed into wheelbarrows and then
they're doing it all by
walking it up
hand.
the beach. Yeah.
Oh,
And dumping it in this
man.
giant pile of seaweed. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So to get into the water, you had to like walk through seaweed and step over seaweed. Like there was no clear path to the water. And then once we even got in the water, like you were constantly brushing seaweed away.
Ugh.
And I was like,
That's the
this
worst,
water's
dude.
nice, but this isn't worth it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit and stare at it. And when I want to go in the water, I'm going to go into the pool at my condo.
Yeah.
It's like when you like Texas beaches when you get in, it's like, I mean, this is nice, but like you're always being like it's sea lice or it's jellyfish
Yeah.
or it's
Yeah.
like, man, there's always something in this water that you can't actually, and it's because it's a nice warm temperature, like it feels like,
Yeah.
well, it sucks.
Something's underneath here that I can't see.
And they had, so at night we saw, because we walked down one night after like because all the restaurants and stuff that are on the beach, they all shut down about 9. And so we went down around then, and there was a big giant tractor, and he dug a big hole, and right next to the big pile of seaweed. And I thought, oh, he's going to push all that into the hole, and then he's going to bury it. And sure enough, the next morning, it was gone. And
Yeah.
I thought, yep, that dude buried it because there's nowhere else he could have gone with it. He had to have buried it. So I was just like,
good
dang,
thinking.
okay.
Could have burned it.
Well, it was all wet.
Oh, put some gas on there.
That's a bummer, man.
So yeah, but it was like, that's the funny thing. Like Jen and I, like and this is, before we get into our actual topic, I guess, like
Will we
in
ever?
terms of like doing something like this, the important piece for Jenner and I is that we were together. Like that was the thing. And we struggle a little bit with like, because there's a ton of excursions you can do. Like they have a really cool beach that you can drive out to, but it's like it's 10 hours, like it's all day.
Ew.
Like you'll be gone all day. Or you can go like parasailing, or you can go like dune buggy riding or horseback riding. There's all of these different things you can go to, and most of them take, like the shortest we found was like half a day. Because they all involve like you have to get picked up, and then you go pick up other people, and then they drop you off, and you have to wait for the other people to get picked up and brought in, and it's just, so it's like a whole bunch of waiting. And we just didn't really kind of want to do it, especially not after we got swindled by that dude. By our own
Don't
private
blame you.
excursion tour guide.
Yeah.
And so we were like, yeah, we're good. Like we spent the money on that we would have spent on one of these, because they're all expensive. Like the beach one where it's the 10 hours, that's like $100 and something per person. So we would have spent 200 just getting out there. It wouldn't have included any purchasing we would have done. Like they would have provided lunch, but so like we kind of struggled with this feeling of like, well, but we got to be able to go back and say we did this really cool thing. And as we talked about it, we were just like, why?
Yeah.
We just want to be together, and we just want to hang out and be relaxed.
That's the cool thing.
Yeah. And so we went and just hung out on a beach and bought Coke and guac so that we could sit in their chairs and watch the beach.
Oh man,
Nice.
Yeah. It was freaking rad.
I want Coke and guac.
Speaking of guac,
Well,
dude,
The guac wasn't great, but
have you ever had, instead of chips, pork rinds and guac?
no.
It's freaking amazing.
Is it?
Really?
We had it at a restaurant Monday night because my wife has celiac, and the chips that they bring out with the guac aren't gluten-free, but the ones they just give you at your table are. So he's like, I can do chicharrones if you want. And I'm like, sweet. And these weren't like the ones you get in the bag. They were a little
Right.
bit lighter, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude, it's basically just like bacon and guac. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I've ever actually eaten a pork rind.
You can get
I
really
have.
good ones and you can get really bad ones.
Yeah.
I feel like they sold. I mean, they did sell them in the Philippines all the time, but I never bought any. So I was like, gross, pork rinds.
Yeah.
Dude,
I think about it.
pigskin
Why wouldn't I like
fried?
those?
Come on.
Yeah, why wouldn't I like that? I'm buying a bag
Well,
today.
Just out of curiosity, why don't they do that with the chicken skin?
It's
I think-
chicken skin, dude.
Well, it's not a.
Yeah.
It's
You
it
eat
doesn't
it when
puff.
it's on the chicken.
I don't think it puffs.
I know, but it's like rat. Like I love the when you
Oh, yeah.
when
I
someone
would
does
love
the and it's like
crunchy chicken
super
skin.
crispy. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just saying.
You'd have to come up with. Isn't it pork rinds?
Yeah.
Which that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what a rind is. Some people say
No.
pork rinds, like
I thought it,
pork
wait, I
is a
thought it was pork.
watermelon, and you're
I
just
thought it was-
eating the outer part of it. But like,
I don't know what it is. I, thought it was, I did think it was pork rind.
I thought it was
like
pork
you're
rind
taking
with
the
a
outer
D.
shell
Is
of
it
something
rind?
and eating it.
dude, that
Quick, Spaceman.
doesn't-
If we were
so-
doing this live, Spaceman could chime in. But
I'm
we're
looking
not.
It says like when I type in pork RIN, every
Right, it's
version
rinds.
is DS. Yeah.
so
Yeah, I thought it was.
It is like
the
a
it's like
watermelon.
the
That's the only
skin,
other thing I
outside
can think of
skin.
where you say rind.
Yeah.
So chicken rinds, that just doesn't sound right.
It's true.
Chicken epidermis.
pork rinds.
Well, because if you call it chicken skin, no one's eating it.
That's what I was going to say when
Fried
you said.
chicken skin.
I don't know though. I think I'd go for that if you threw the fried on there and you gave it a little accent. I'd eat it.
That's true. Instead of just chicken skin, get your chicken skin.
Dude, I'm doing it. This week I'm buying some pork rinds.
Okay, let me just warn you. Just like beef jerky, avert your nose when you open the bag. It will spoil the whole experience.
Or just like the
Sour cream and onion chip, or sour cream and cheddar
No, the
chips.
sour
You
cream
open
and
it up
cheddar
it
chips.
It's like, it smells like feet.
smells like feet.
Yeah, this just smells like intestine. So
Ugh.
just go the other way
right.
and then come back
Noted.
to it.
Well, before we jump into our topic, I'm going to tie this in, or will I? I don't remember how we said we were going to tie this in, but I'm going to report on this first because it's going to be I'm going to follow up on it later. We'll say in like 2 or 3 months. Who knows? I just finished reading this book called The Comfort Crisis, which basically, Matt, I think you and I talked about it a little bit last time, but it basically, the idea is that comfort and the drive towards making things easy or ease and comfort is actually creating more problems for us than good. And so he mentions things, a few different things that we do that are actually problematic, and how our body and brains are designed to like push ourselves and to be uncomfortable, and that people are actually happier when they're more uncomfortable because they know how to manage this discomfort and blah, blah, blah. It's a good book. There's certain points around like food. There's like, dumb, I'm not listening to this book anymore. And then we got to this part about rucking. So I actually have had a few clients who ruck. So for those who are not familiar with rucking and a rucksack, basically it's a bag with weight in it that you carry around. It's not rocket science. But here's what's interesting. He actually kind of explains why this is something. He said one of the things that sets humans, there's 2 things he mentions that set humans apart from animals, among other things. But one is humans actually can outperform pretty much any animal when it comes to performing in the heat. Like we can outrun them. Like animals will always have to stop and pant or something. And so he said some tribes will chase animals down just because they know the animal will eventually tire out, and then they can get the animal, because it's too poopy and can't perform well.
I would have thought it was the opposite, but
I know
me too.
Anyway.
But we have self-cooling, and animals can't do that. Like they can run really fast, but often only for this long. Except you get to like the Iditarod, like what's the word I'm looking for? Sled dogs. Those things can go forever, but it's cold. They don't do well in heat at all. But the other thing was we can carry things and animals can't. They have to use their mouth to carry things. But our hands are, so it kind of talks about how we were evolved to carry things and how carrying actually does a lot for our bodies. And so the idea behind rucking is you carry this weight, and he talks about how it stabilizes your whole core and all this stuff. He mentions one guy that was like, I want that. I want whatever that guy's doing. Because he said he rucks all the time. He created this company where I'm buying my rucksack from called Go Ruck. And Becky was like, go ruck yourself. I was like, oh, you should write their slogan, see if they'll give me a free bag. Anyway, this guy, he's like, he would go rucking. Rucking is apparently something that like any special forces in any arm of the military apparently they always do all their training with rucksacks, like weight. So he said when he would do his rucking, he would come home and he'd eat a third of a jar of peanut butter and then eat a bag of M&Ms mixed with granola, the whole thing. He's like, as soon as I got home, I'd pound all of that and then I'd still lose weight. I was like, oh, sign me up.
Wow.
So I'm telling you now, and then I'll tell you how it goes. Or you guys can tell me like, Rob, you look so slender and svelte.
And you got a little bit of peanut butter on your mouth.
Ew. But does that tie into our topic? Probably not. Because our topic has to do with flying Vs. Right?
Go for it, Mike.
V formation, Mike.
I have to be the one to try to tie Rob's flying V's into our topic.
No, because I'll tell you why.
I
Okay,
know
fine.
why.
Dude, you probably fielded like really dumb questions and answers from kids for years.
Yeah,
they tied
dude.
it back to the lesson plan.
Wait, Matt just called me a dumb kid.
No,
Too late.
I'm just saying.
I am.
Go with the flow.
Okay, so Jenner sent me a a thing, and she was curious how true it was. Which yeah, I felt like it was pretty true. I'll just read what it says. If you're talking to a guy, we stand at right angles to each other, not face to face. Face to face is confrontational, but shoulder to shoulder is an L symbol, or an L shape is much more comfortable for men. Women prefer face to face, so if you're a female, don't be alarmed if men keep turning slightly while you're talking with them. On the other hand, women often gravitate towards face to face interaction as it fosters emotional connection and direct eye contact, which can be perceived as more honest and intimate. While these generalizations may hold true for some, it's important to remember that communication styles vary widely among individuals, and there are no one-size-fits-all rules.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do we know where this came from?
No. I didn't. I forgot to ask her. I meant to ask her where it came from. I mean, looking at it, it looks like Instagram or something.
An Instagram story, yeah.
Something that's kind of what it looks like to me.
Right.
Hey,
Okay.
we've heard this a lot though. Like we mentioned it way back. A similar thing. I know there's some there's science behind it too. Whatever that's worth. But yeah.
Nothing. It's worth nothing. So, Mike,
Rob.
you posted that and then said, thoughts?
I never shared mine, did I?
No.
Yeah, shocker. I'm not great at responding and stuff.
Huh. It's almost like
I know.
someone we know said that to us.
It's
And
weird.
then I went to lunch with that person and he's like, tell him to text me back, would you?
It's awkward. No, anyway, so like as I thought about it, I thought, yeah, I could see it. And I thought of a lunch I went to because you, Rob, said that when you when you go to lunch with someone, you won't sit across from them; you'll sit L'd to them,
No,
right?
I won't sit L'd because that to me is like if we go to a table of four, you know, like just a square table.
Yeah,
Sitting
it's a weird intimate.
in the corner feels like a date.
Yeah,
I want to be closer to you. So I will sit across from him in that context. But if we go to somewhere that's like if we went to Whataburger and we're sitting in a booth, I will never sit directly
Right.
across from you. I always
You'll-
angle myself a little off to the left.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Because
that's so.
Sometimes I think that's a space issue, but it's also like I think it's usually, I'm like, I don't want our knees touching. Gross.
Weird. But that's like I thought, yeah, I went to lunch and sat across from someone and I was aware of like it forces eye contact. And I found that much continued eye contact, I was starting to get really uncomfortable. And I thought, no, I need an outlet here. But because I'm sitting right across from him, it's really hard to have that outlet because then I'm very obviously looking somewhere else, right? Which Jenner, like as I was reading, I thought, oh, she's complained about that before. She's complained about like, why aren't you looking at me? It seems like you're lying. And I thought, no, I'm just not looking at you. Which, I mean, that was pretty early in our marriage, before she learned to tell when I was lying.
Which is a lot.
I mean, what? But it is I think it's weirdly accurate. Or I guess not weirdly accurate. I think it's accurate. I think we're going to be more comfortable not so much face to face.
Actually, it's kind of interesting because I think it's accurate. I guess the way it's written sounds like men perceive it as confrontational. Women perceive it as emotionally intimate.
Intimate. Mm-hmm.
but I feel like the reason I don't do it because it's confrontation. Like I don't stand in an L shape because it's not confrontational. Like I don't want to stand face to face, kind of what you're describing. And I don't know if it's a standing thing. Sometimes I think, yeah, I'll stand that way, I guess, because it feels weird to. I don't know. I have to think about the standing
Yep.
one.
But when you're standing, you can put distance between you.
Maybe, yeah. But I think mine is not a confrontation thing. Mine is it's an intimacy thing. It's like, ooh, kind of like what you're saying. It's like, so we're just gonna make eye contact and like eat our hamburgers or what? You're gonna watch me eat with this much detail? I don't. So it does feel. Um, and I mean, obviously, I agree that it's not one size fits all because I know lots of people like who want to be close and intimate that way. But I think this is sometimes like maybe part of me feels like the first part where it's talking about how we perceive it as confrontational, but shoulder to shoulder is more comfortable. I feel like that's just a way of saying I'm uncomfortable being face to face, but I'll say it's confrontational, and so because that sounds more masculine.
Well, I was thinking that when we first brought this up, because it's kind of like defined as men moving away from something and women moving towards something, right?
Right, right.
So I was just reading this. This is from sociologist Harry Broad. Anyway, he said numerous studies have established that men are more likely to define emotional closeness as working or playing side by side, while women often view it as talking face to face. So, like, I think that's a more helpful way to look at it. That like that's how I feel closer, because my associations of feeling tied to you are when we are like doing something together, engaged in something together. Those are meaningful activities for me. And so I'm getting into this position with you to get closer, actually, even though it looks,
Right.
I think that's where some of the conflict happens sometimes between men and women, where it's like, you know, you're not doing the thing that makes me feel close, right? If I'm moving away and not making eye contact, you know, a woman might say you're avoiding something, right? Like, because to me, my experiences of closeness have been face to face, eye contact, and he could be moving into a position of saying, no, I'm trying to feel closer to you in my way. Or vice versa, right? Like, I think in some ways, I don't know if this has happened for you guys, but in couples therapy, a lot of times, if you think about the orientation, it's two people sitting side by side looking at you, the therapist. And I always kind of preface it. It's funny because I have seen both men and women experience discomfort when I say this, but I preface it by saying, I'm about to ask you to do something uncomfortable, turn towards each other, right? And usually it's like, because we're having a hard time feeling intimate connection, right? But I do notice that a lot of the guys, when we get into those conversations, will, like, if I ask them, what's your gut telling you to do right now? A lot of times it's, I want to slide up next to her and put my arm around her and comfort her or be close to her, or I want to like reach out with a hand, but it is a little bit more of a side position. And that could be because they're on a couch and it's kind of awkward to just flip completely. But now that I think about it, I'm like, when I had two chairs, or when I would put them in two chairs, I would assume like closeness is no, face each other, pretend I'm not here, you know, maybe even scoot up closer to each other. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, is that really his association with closeness? Or is that more her association with closeness? I think generally we just think for everybody that is closeness. And I don't know if that's true for everybody.
Well, according to this Instagram story, it is not. But also, I think, and I don't. This is just my theory on that, because I've noticed that I actually like when couples will. I have couch that my two couches corner each other, and so sometimes they'll sit in those two corners, and I kind of like that because it makes it much easier to say, have this conversation, or they can look at each other easier. It's much harder when one's talking for the other person to like turn and, like,
Yeah.
But I wonder if, and this is just wondering if for at least some men, this idea of like, I want to put my arm around her, it does still sound like it is a sideways thing, but it's also still a stance of like, it's not as vulnerable for me. When I put my arm around her, it's it's putting her under my wing and taking care of her. And that feels comfortable to me while connecting. So it's not saying I want her to put her arm around me. I want to put my arm around her. So I don't know. But it's interesting, Matt, you talk about that play thing. And I was thinking I don't think I want to use it for a whole topic because we've kind of covered it before, but remember that, it was like a TED Talk, I think, that I showed you about this woman talking about the release of oxytocin, the love chemical or the connection chemical, whatever you want to call it, and how when they've done studies, they've shown that when moms and babies, I gotta plug my phone in, when moms and kids, when they snuggle, they both release high levels of oxytocin. And that when dads and kids snuggle, they also release oxytocin, but not that much. But when they play together, they release very high levels of oxytocin. So it's almost like kids have adapted and dads have adapted to say, this is where we will connect this way. So that goes back to this idea. It's like, even if it was true that men want to do this L thing, it like what they're saying, it's like, well, it doesn't mean we're saying, I don't want to be intimate with you. It's saying, this is how I feel comfortable being intimate with you.
Yeah.
And actually it feels better to me to be intimate with you this way. I don't think that even if it was that men are saying I want to put my arm around her because it's protecting and it feels like I get the connection and I get to fill my role. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's saying that does make me feel comfortable with you to want to connect with you this way. Instead of saying, well, that's a deficiency and you should want to do eye contact. I think I told you guys that my wife and I did these different exercises that sometimes we'll have couples do, like the hugging till relaxed exercise, which for my wife is super easy. She could do it all day long. And for me, it's like, she's like, why is your heart racing? I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, I mean, we're talking about hugging for 8 minutes, like it's a long freaking hug. So it's a lot of adjusting.
Doesn't your back start to hurt? Like you're standing up and hugging for 8 minutes?
Well, yes, but that's one of the ideas is saying, hey, look, it's just about keeping close, physical, intimate connection. Yeah. So if you need to adjust, just adjust. Like you can't hug in a way that's like, I will hug this way because it's what feels good to you. It's like, I have to feel comfortable here too. But it's easier for my wife than it was for me. But the eye contact exercise, which was just kind of uninterrupted.
Staring at each other.
Yeah. I think of Baby Mama, where he's going to reward, Steve Martin's going to reward, I want to call her Liz
with like the forehead touch thing.
Yeah. with 5 minutes of uninterrupted eye contact. And she's like, she kind of starts to look away kind of for a second. It does like an even more intense, like, but when I do it with my wife, it's like, for me, it feels very connecting, even though but for her, it was like, she's like, this is hard for me. Like, it's like I was peering into her soul. She wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. It was just like, so I think that variable, it's like, I don't think there's a right way to do it. I think it's like, well, how do we connect? How come it can't be okay for men to connect that way? Because maybe it's great that men don't connect by like holding each other, making eye contact, but we would put our arms around each other and like, and then fake punch you in the stomach. But it's like, yeah, but we're getting our physical contact while still feeling comfortable. So I don't think one letter, I don't know what the converse to the
L and V.
V, yeah, or the I. I don't
I do wonder. I mean, as you're talking about the kid thing, cuddling goes down and play goes down generally as your kids get older.
Yeah.
But it just made me think of like teenage boys that try and wrestle their dad, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think the quick, easy interpretation of that is like, because the conversation usually is like, I want to get to a point where I can like take my dad down or something, and the dad's like,
it's an alpha.
You're never going to take me down.
Thing.
But there's probably a lot of oxytocin going on there, like you're saying, and and it's hard. I think it has been hard for me because I have all girls, and like they don't want to wrestle anymore.
Yeah.
And my daughter, my youngest, says that I have frozen hot dog fingers. She's like,
that's so
like
specific and harsh.
Because she's just like, they're just like these thick, rock hard. Like when you tickle me, I just, like feels like you're bruising me, and like they went from like being exhilarated by some of our like roughhousing to kind of like ow, oh, oh, and I'm like crap, like so. I think I told you about the time when I accidentally kneed my wife in the crotch when we were trying to play. Did I ever tell you about that?
No.
I was like, we were like just newly married and we were folding clothes, and I took a pair of socks and I was just kind of like swinging them like nunchucks. And then I went to like kind of like take her and fold her over my knee and like roll her onto the bed.
Yeah.
But she didn't turn. And I was like, what? She just like, what? She like immediately falls over and starts tearing up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. But like, yeah, it has been hard to know how to bond in that way. But man, when like, it's weird because I think that as we get older as men, our play goes way down, right?
Yeah.
And if that's something that really ties into this shoulder to shoulder V or L formation type of a thing, I don't know if you've had this experience, but like there's been a few times I can think of where I did play something like just the other day. Now that I think about it, like I invented this ball game to play in the pool, and basically, I'll explain the rules real quick. You have like
so you guys can do two.
Like 4 people. You can whittle it down to 3. 2 really doesn't work. We had 5 at one time when my oldest was here, but like, so you have 2 balls, and you just start like passing them to the person next to you in the same direction, right? So they're like traveling, and like if you end up with 2 of them at the same time, you're out. So like if you fumble one and then the other one hits you, it's like boom, you're done.
Yeah.
And like for me, that's like those are the moments when I feel really connected and I feel really alive with them, right? Cuddling's nice. I don't mind it, and we, do that when we're watching shows and stuff, but like but yeah, like I think we do lose that over time, and it'd be interesting to ask guys like, how much play did you engage in as a kid, teenager, and now as a man? And what role does that play in like how close you feel to the people around you? And sadly, I think it's probably like in really low quantities for most men. And then we wonder why don't you feel connected, right? Why don't you feel, because maybe some of the things that we're trying to do to connect just don't bring me the same, like, chemical release. They don't feel the same to me. I don't have the same associations with them, and it's hard to get into, especially when people aren't playful. Like I think a lot of people would say this generally about relationships that go on and maybe don't nurture this part of the relationship. But I think I've heard a lot of guys say things like, she doesn't laugh at my jokes anymore. She thinks I'm like immature or rude. And like, if I went to go like tickle her or something, she'd either be like, are you just trying to get me to have sex? Or she'd just get really mad, right? Like I'm trying to work, or what, like, why don't you do something productive or something? Right. And, and I think that's such a crucial part of being able to connect for us, that we probably need to do a more intentional job of nurturing.
Well, it's kind of interesting, like, as we talk about this, and really splintered off this. I mean, technically, I just want to point out that an L can be a V if you just put it at the right angle.
But can't.
But I think, like, I was thinking about this the other day. I play with kids after I saw that thing, and thinking about, I do this band with my kids, and I try to make it fun, like, because it's weird being in a band with your kids. when I was in a band before, you can get super annoyed at the drummer. I got super annoyed at the drummer all the time. I was always like, we called him Nubs. I'm like, Nubs, are you kidding me? Like, would you freaking focus? Like, would you stop turning every song into a reggae song? Every single song? Or like I'd be like, here's a really sweet cover we got. And he's like, it's too butt rocky. I'm like, come on, man. Anyway. Or like, you just you make rules and you can like call each other on your crap because you're friends and it's not a big deal. But when it's your kids, it's like, how do I call the drummer on? Like, dude, knock it off, and not sound like a dad being like, or I'm going to ground you and take your phone away. Like, and so, and my kids get frustrated with each other and they're in bad moods and they don't, it's like, but they're siblings. So it makes it different. And so I'm trying to figure out how do I make this fun for you? So I do lots of like high leg kicks with like, yeah, kind of yells whenever I can. But then I thought that's one kind of play. But I've been thinking more about how I don't, for lack of a better way to put this, I don't touch my kids enough. Like I need more physical contact with my kids, mixed with play. And so actually, when you were talking about this pool thing, did you say you were in the pool doing this, Matt? The passing the ball?
That ball game, yeah.
Yeah. Me and my kids just play 3 flies up in the pool. And it's really interesting because my youngest son in particular, he wants to like, sometimes it's like, he just wants to touch you and like lay out. It's like, get off of me, man. It's like, I don't want more human body on me. Can you? And then I feel like, I think, oh, he's just kind of messing with me, but oh shoot. Now I'm looking at this going, oh, he's just trying to connect with me. Maybe I should connect with him. That's what I like about the 3 flies up is like, I will push them around and knock them over and shove them under. And, I always make sure because I used to be taller than all of them. I'd squat and I was only allowed to play squatted. But it is fun. It feels very connecting with my kids. I don't, but I have a friend who his favorite thing ever was to just cuddle with his dad. And I don't mean like when he was a kid. I mean, as an adult, him and his dad would like spoon on the couch. He loved it. And I'm like, I do not get that. I've never done that with my dad. Never.
Yeah.
But so I just think it's like, I had a couple recently that I was talking to and said, look, as the longer I've done this job, the more I used to align very heavily and almost hard-lined with females and kind of telling men like, you have to be more emotionally expressive. And I still believe that men should be able to express emotion, but that doesn't necessarily mean be emotional, if that makes sense. But I also think sometimes it's okay to say, yeah, I mean, he's expressing this way. So if 2 dudes don't want to, face like this, but they're doing this, they're going V formation rather than the other way. I feel like, yeah, sometimes too, that's the way of like, yeah, it's okay. We're closer to each other this way, but it's not confrontational. It's not really intimate, but it is kind of intimate. Like I'm actually getting a little closer to you by going V, standing at a right angle to you. So I kind of like the idea of recognizing men want the same things. We just go about them in different ways. Like,
yeah. No, and I think that's an important point to make because it's not accommodating, which I do think is important. But I was going to say this earlier, right? Like, I think it's important to, a lot of times, there are certain times where maybe you would have a different conversation, but a lot of times you got to default to the less comfortable person in the situation, right? Like there are lots of situations where if somebody's like, yeah, that doesn't feel right to me, right? Then default to that. But I don't think this is the way that this has been understood and interpreted from time to time is like, well, he's less comfortable with eye contact, so accommodate his shoulder to shoulder instead of like you're saying, no, that's like, it can be a balance for sure, but like just know that maybe that is the way that he feels closer, like that he's seeking closeness in the best way, the way that works best for him, just like eye contact or whatever it is the best for you. So,
yeah, I think that accommodating to know that like, just because I'm more comfortable being, and this goes back to the comfort book I read about finding ways to push yourself out of your comfort zone. because it's the only way that you will be happier doing that, rather than living in kind of a scarcity, safety based mindset all the time. If you're saying the only way I feel comfortable is in V formation, I love it. Then it's like, well, then we need to push you. It's baffling to me how many people feel like in therapy, feel like, no, this is the way I am. So work within these parameters. I'm like, let's make you not this way. Like, if you're uncomfortable with eye contact, let's get you more comfortable with eye contact, because your wife loves it. And she could also, the other direction, say, sometimes he's not going to do that. Sometimes you need to recognize that when he went V formation on you, he's just trying to get a little closer without being so confrontational sometimes in the right context, or even maybe he's not ready for that level of intimacy. He wants this or this type, not even level, but this type of intimacy that feels like closeness. And I just want to, even, like Matt, when you're talking about, these times when we're tickling or grabbing butts. I was thinking, anyway, I don't want to have to mark the explicit thing on our thing, so I didn't say it. But I think, yeah, it's not always sex. Sometimes it's like, I just want to, like, it's fun to play with you and like be physical with you. And it's not like we're immature. It's just a different form of how we connect, which is shown then from this study this woman's talking about, where it's like, even at an early age, we learn to connect with each other also through play. It's just as intimate in certain ways. But Mike, you should chime in.
Should I?
Should I?
Join us next time on. Just kidding. No, it's funny because, like, I'll talk about this a lot with my clients. This idea that, like, hey, he probably is expressing something, or she is, right? It goes both ways, and you're just not picking it up, right? Because it's not the way you're used to. And I think that's what we're kind of talking about. Like, for a guy, the wife is probably missing, like, he never wants to make eye contact with me, or he doesn't, like, he gets really uncomfortable when it's prolonged eye contact, and he'll start making jokes, so he'll start doing this. And it's like, right, because that's not his way. He's trying to do something to make it a tolerable situation for him that he can stay in. And so he's going to crack a joke, because now I can stay in this thing a little bit longer than I could have otherwise. And it's kind of learning to recognize, oh, there is another way to do it, and my husband's doing it that way. And yes, he's got to learn to push himself, but I have to learn to push myself too.
That's, I think, to add, because you said something I thought, I talk with couples about, would you believe it, that just this morning,
Today?
Actually, it was my client right before this, but I said it does matter that you balance lightheartedness and playfulness with, like, deep emotional intimacy. So if to women, or to, like, I guess I'll speak to women in this context, because if you're sitting there with your husband and it's getting deeply emotionally intense and he cracks a joke, don't respond in a way that's like, well, you ruined it. It's like, well, be playful with him for a second and then bring it back. Like, with clients, I ebb and flow back and forth. I'll make a joke and I'll go right back into something heavy, and then we'll make a joke again and we'll get light about it, and then we'll come back into something heavy, because it's okay to just say, I'll accept you where you are. Like, yeah, it was funny. It was a joke. And then it feels like, oh, I can be playful and we can be, like, intense and intimate, and that one is not at the exclusion of other. Both are forms of intimacy. So being able to push yourself in that way, to say, I'll join you. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're going to ruin the whole thing, which I think sometimes men get this message that if they misstep, it's like, well, great, you ruined it. It's over now.
Yeah.
Like, so if he goes to V formation, she's like, well, I wanted to be intimate, but it's like, I'm trying to be intimate too. So just learning to accept where the person is and what they're offering, I think, is a really big deal.
Well, and there is, like, Matt, you mentioned that as we get older with men, right, we have less opportunity to play. And I think within relationships that happens too. We've said it on here before. Like, there's real value in having conversations with your spouse about nothing. Like, when we're dating, there's a lot more of the kind of playing, right? When you accidentally need your wife in the crotch, I think, yeah, that thing probably happened. I mean, probably not that outcome every time, but that kind of play happened much more often when you're younger and when you're dating, because it's what is allowed. And so you learn to express the intimacy through those methods. And you learn to express it that way because, I mean, you know, at least for us, the three of us, like it was you're not having sex until after you're married, which isn't necessarily unique to our religion. There's lots of people who will practice that, but it's that kind of lighthearted, playful that exists when we're dating and slowly fades between kids and responsibilities, and we forget. And I think for men, it's particularly difficult because that is where we know we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will often, when things get tense for Jenner, I will often try to make her laugh just because like if she laughs, it's kind of a gauge for me of like, oh, okay, this is where she's at. Like if she's not laughing, I'm like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like she must be having a really rough time right now because she's not even laughing. Because it's not that I'm not funny, I'm freaking hilarious. But yeah, that's. I was just thinking that, Mike.
I was like, Mike's so funny.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so yeah, but
We're
that
all
kind
funny
of
in our own ways.
You're funny too, Mike.
So is Rob the funny one?
Anyway, yeah, that's all. You ruined it, Rob.
I know. You ruin it, Rob, when you do stuff like that. Well, say something else now. Whatever. So in short, we're saying everything men do
is right.
Is right. We were right all along. And we should probably go back to a system where, because we're so right all the time, we should be in charge of everything. And I say go back to a system because that's not the system anymore. Am I right?
I mean, Harrison Butker seems to think it's not.
Oh, man, that guy got some crap. I didn't even see the thing.
He decided to double down on what he said.
Well, I will say this. I always appreciate somebody who says, hey, look, this is something that I really find important.
Well, and that's at least his initial comments.
And I won't back away from it.
Yeah, at least his initial comments, I think, were taken largely out of context. At least the ones that they were choosing to share. I didn't see the whole message, but some of them I thought, no, he's not saying that's what a woman should do. He's saying, I think there are a lot of women who want that. And I think, yeah, that's probably true. Certainly I knew people who swore up and down they wouldn't have kids and their career would, this was teachers. Like, no, my kids are my students. And then they had a baby and within like 2 years, they're like, I'm done teaching. Yeah. I just want to be home with my kid. And I'm like,
I don't. Go ahead.
But then he went and doubled down and saying stuff like, time when women thought less and spoke less. And I thought, oh, dude.
Wait, was that what he actually said? Because I saw that, and then somebody said that was like a fabricated statement.
So I was going to say I didn't. The first statement, no, that he said they were quoting that from his commencement speech. Mm-hmm. The second one, my kids told me that's what he went back and clarified, and I thought you're clarifying with that.
Yeah,
that's clear. Like, I could make the argument before that's not what you were saying. I can't make that argument now. Now that's just what you're saying, you dummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that really wasn't what he said, the clarifying, all I know is I actually haven't read anything he said. I just see all this stuff and I've thought, this is going to be totally hypocritical because I think I don't really want to spend my time figuring out what that guy thought. I got other stuff I got to do.
Yeah.
But then I think it's hypocritical because I'm like, well, I'll probably spend my time figuring out what somebody else thought. I could get all up in arms about that.
But I was going to say, I live in Kansas City, so it was all over the place here.
Yeah.
Because he's a chief, so.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
anyway.
Go Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
An enthusiastic endorsement.
Good. Who are you rooting for, Rob? The Seahawks? How's that working out for you?
Dude, season's over. It's working out fine.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Mike, do you know who beat the Yankees in their last game? Boom! Do you know who's at the top of their standing right now? Boom!
Yeah,
Although that's
but
not
you know
saying a
who
ton because
still
we have
has
the
a worse
worst-
record than the Yankees?
Well,
Boom.
honestly, the AL West has the worst division in baseball. It's like
I know.
every team is struggling to even get above 500, but these guys are the
Yeah.
highest above 500.
Dude, right now it's the NL is the division to beat between the
Yeah.
Phillies, the Braves. Hey, you're
Braves.
Braves.
I know. See, Braves. I
The
got
Phillies, the
still.
Braves, and the Dodgers. I
Oh,
think you're looking
Dodgers,
at one of
shut
the world champions right there. It's one of those three teams.
Well, it's funny as a side note, and then we can wrap this episode up. But I've started watching soccer, and I'm trying to understand basically what is the pyramid scheme of English soccer, English/European soccer. It's always like, so then these guys are in this down line because they won this, but then they're in this down line. It's always so complex, and I don't understand. And the way the English Premier League works is that the winner is just whoever has the most points at the end. There is no like playoff game. It's just you have the most points, you win.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about any of the English teams. I do know that when my friends would tell me about it, I was like, well, Manchester United is the devil. I don't know why. That was the message I got. Don't like Manchester United. But I just started, whenever I started learning to watch soccer, the first 2 or 3 times I turned it on, it was always Liverpool game. So I was like, all right, Liverpool, that's my team. And my friend, it turns out, likes Man City, who's won they won the Premier League this year, by the way, just like last Sunday. They've won 4 years in a row, I think.
Dang.
But I was looking up Liverpool, and I was looking at their record, and it was like, oh, did I pick the Yankees of the English Premier League?
Did you?
It's like, it seems like they have like the record for winning the most. I was like, oh shoot, I don't want to pick the Yankees. I thought I was picking because when I picked them, they were like third. They just get third, like it's like,
Hey,
cool. I
when
like the team that's almost there.
When I started following the Yankees, they were bottom of the NL East or the AL East every frickin' season.
Well, look, you say that like I didn't also follow the Yankees at the time. I did.
I know. And then you sold out.
Yeah, because I realized that I lived in places that had teams that I should like.
Well, by the time we got to those places, I was too embedded.
Also, I didn't realize that Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig weren't all still on the team. So in my defense, I'm stupid.
I was rooting for a very different Yankees team than you were, Mike.
It's a really good defense when somebody says, well, how do you explain yourself? To just say, I'm stupid. I don't know a lot of things. Because then it's like, yeah, you don't. I'd be like, we've already established that.
Okay.
I have a little tidbit of helpful information for you.
Sweet.
I'm in.
For your next anniversary or day date, Taco Bell now has avocado verde salsa.
Oh, is it good?
I don't know. I saw an ad for it earlier.
I'll probably
Well, man,
find
I
out.
guess I
and
know
tell
what
you.
we're eating when I come down next week. So, Spacemen, I mean,
Space birds.
Space Spartans, Space Birds, that's what I said. Space Goals. We've given you multiple important tidbits to make you a better man, and even some for your female partners.
Don't ruck it up.
One thing is, we'll find out how Rob's doing with rucking in the future. We did educate you on where the Dominican Republic is in relation to Haiti and the Atlantic Ocean / Caribbean. I also mentioned Grenada. So for you geography buffs, you've gotten a lot today. We've explained the flying L/V and how men want intimacy as well. And it's okay to be playful and balance it with deep emotional connection. And we found out that Taco Bell has avocado verde whatever salsa to go with whatever other vending machine packaged in a burrito that they are selling at the time. So come back more next time to hear more tips about everything that touches men and everything that
including
maybe
an update on the status of Rob's nipple chafing after rucking. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ordering today, so we'll find out. So then come back next time and catch us on the man space. Hold me with those cold hot dog fingers.